A very good evening. Welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Ashingsani Veerasinghe. Let's have a look at the headlines for today. Central Bank of Sri Lanka launches the roadmap for sustainable finance in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka Telecom introduces a safety-based smart transport application. News in detail. Addressing the launch of Roadmap for Sustainable Finance in Sri Lanka, organized by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, together with International Finance Corporation and United Nations Development Programme, the Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, mentioned that Sri Lanka is the first country to appoint a Parliamentary Select Committee on Sustainable Development. Thus, the launch roadmap envisions to build a financial system that will valorize sustainability in all financial systems in Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka has made progress towards achieving sustainability. In terms of statutory provisions, the Sustainable Development Act No. 19 of 2017 provides the legal framework for implementing SDGs. The government has also established a Sustainable Development Council to facilitate the achievement of national, regional, and international commitments related to sustainable development. Sri Lanka is the first country to appoint a Parliamentary Select Committee on Sustainable Development. The Select Committee of Parliament has been mandated to make recommendations to ensure that the UN 2030 agenda for SDGs is attained. The government has also realized the need for providing necessary impetus towards sustainability through budgetary measures. Towards this end, through the 2018 budget, themed a Blue-Green Budget Enterprise Sri Lanka, the government expressed its intention to integrate the full economic potential of ocean-related activities in formulating the overall growth strategy and to adopt an environmentally sustainable development strategy.
Moreover, Governor of the Central Bank explained that the roadmap identifies 6 strategic priorities for which an action plan is stipulated, and he further elaborated how the Central Bank is contributing to forge a sustainable financial system.
Way forward and prospects. The roadmap identified, as I said, 6 strategic priorities. It represents an action plan for each strategic activity which shall be implemented over the short, medium, and long term. Short, medium, and long-term actions have been identified within the roadmap. To that end, the Central Bank is now in the process of operationalizing the roadmap in line with the stipulated timeframes and targeted actions. We have already set up a steering committee within the Central Bank to implement the roadmap and to monitor the progress. We will also be considering issuing relevant regulations and directions to incentivize the financial institutions to practice sustainable finance actively. Going forward, we are contemplating establishing a committee of regulatory and non-regulatory stakeholders of the Sustainable Finance Initiative, reinforcing the shared responsibilities and commitments in the way forward. The Central Bank's role would be in developing necessary frameworks that help the market and financial institutions adopt good practices in delivering sustainable finance.
Furthermore, Policy and Design Specialist for Environment at UNDP, Tharuka Dissanayake, elaborated how Biodiversity Action Plan proposed by the UNDP would help in fashioning a viable, sustainable financial system in Sri Lanka.
But in 2015 and 16, we supported the government of Sri Lanka to actually come to put together the Biodiversity Action Plan, like a national strategy and action plan for biodiversity conservation for Sri Lanka. Through the Biofin project, which came shortly after that in 2016, we costed what it would take Sri Lanka to actually implement these actions. And to tell you frankly, this is one of the first times we've actually costed such a plan. We have national adaptation plans, we have national plans to combat desertification and land degradation, which are costed but are not realistically. For example, our national adaptation plan, which is for climate change adaptation, which should be now our key focus, seeing how we are exposed to such vulnerability in flood and drought, is costed only at about 500 million rupees for 5 years, which is, as we all know, is not really reflective of the reality. So when we costed the biodiversity finance plan, we came up with something much more realistic, about 65 billion rupees for a 5-year period to implement the priority actions, of which we see that about a half of that is being met by public investments alone.
Cabinet of Ministers met yesterday under the auspices of President Maithripala Sirisena after a gap of 1 week and approved a proposal by Finance Minister Mangala Samaravira to expand the relief package offered for the tourism-related industries via Sancharaka Podda program, among many other proposals discussed and evaluated yesterday. Accordingly, a proposal by Minister Mangala Samaravira to expand the relief packages provided for upgrading the tourism industry affected by the recent terrorist attacks was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. Accordingly, a grace period up to 31st March 2020 will be given on the working capital loan scheme introduced for institutions and individuals, and a 2-month grace period up to June 30th, 2019 for passenger bus owners. The proposal also included a working capital loan scheme for travel agencies and individuals of music bands. Moreover, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal by President Maithripala Sirisena in his capacity as the Minister of Mahawali Development and Environment to take necessary steps under the Import and Export Control Act No. 1 of 1969 to prohibit the import of mechanical chainsaws. The Cabinet of Ministers also approved the proposal by Minister of Plantation Industries Navin Dissanayake to establish an enterprise resource planning system for Coconut Development Authority under an investment of 40 million rupees. Sri Lanka Telecom, identifying a gap in the market for high-quality, safe and cost-effective mode of transport, introduced the Smart Transport Service yesterday in Colombo. SLT's smart transportation platform, which was named as SLT Move, initially will be available in Greater Colombo areas, revolutionizing the country's connected mobility services and traditional taxi service industries. The Smart Move application was launched in Sri Lanka after months-long trial around the city of Colombo and Western Province. The initiative aspires to rectify issues in the industry pertaining to fairness, reliability, quality and value for money. The app will also overcome the challenges by offering a robust app with 24-hour support center for the riders and drivers, stronger protocols, driver training, clean and safe vehicles, and the ability for riders to share their transport itinerary with friends and family. Moreover, speaking exclusively to Art Television, Chief Executive Officer of SLT Digital Info Services Private Limited, Malraj Balapitiya, emphasized the importance of converting traditional business models to digital business models in order to achieve a smart Sri Lanka.
Actually, Sri Lanka Telecom is very recently launched its National Digital Roadmap. So we are going towards a smart Sri Lanka. So there are so many sectors we have identified during our journey. We have really transformed the traditional business models to more digital business models. So transportation is a very important sector in this digital journey. That is why we wanted to introduce this kind of on-demand app for the benefit of the nation. That's a result of the true digitalization.
Stay tuned for more news after this short break. Welcome back after the break. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka says that a sharp fall in imports and weak export growth led to a significant narrowing of Sri Lanka's trade gap in April 2019 to $797 million from $999 million in April 2018. A recent report by the CBSL says that import expenditure fell by 11% to $1.6 billion in April 2019 from a year ago, while export growth rose only by 0.4% to $798 million. The deficit in the trade account narrowed significantly in April 2019 in comparison to the corresponding month of the previous year due to a considerable reduction in imports. Meanwhile, on a cumulative basis, the deficit in the trade account contracted noticeably to $2,458 million during the first 4 months of 2019 in comparison to $3,981 million recorded in the corresponding period of 2018. Meanwhile, the terms of trade, which represents the relative price of imports in terms of exports, deteriorated by 5.4% year-on-year to 108.3 index points in April 2019 due to the higher rate of decline in export prices in comparison to the decline in import prices. On a cumulative basis, the terms of trade deteriorated by 1.9% year-on-year during the first 4 months of 2019 in comparison to the corresponding period of 2018. Earnings from merchandise exports increased marginally by 0.4% year-on-year to $798 million in April 2019 due to an increase in industrial and mineral exports despite a reduction in agricultural exports. Earnings from industrial exports increased in April 2019 mainly due to the improved performance in textiles and garments, petroleum products and gems, diamonds and jewelry exports from the US and non-traditional markets such as Canada, China, Australia and Brazil. However, earnings from garments exports to the EU market declined in April 2019 due to lower demand from the UK, Italy, Germany and France. Earnings from the agricultural exports were also declined while the earnings from the mineral exports were increased. Accordingly, the export volume index in April 2019 increased by 9.5% while the export unit value index decreased by 8.3%, indicating that the growth in exports were entirely driven by the increased volume compared to April 2018. Further, Central Bank also announced yesterday that the earnings from tourism recorded a decline in April 2019 in comparison to the corresponding period of 2018, owing to the drop in the number of tourist arrivals during the month. The report issued by the Economic Research Department said that tourist arrivals in April 2019 was 166,975, registering a year-on-year decline of 7.5%. The report also added that the moderation in tourist arrivals was mainly due to the decline in the number of tourists from key destinations such as India, Australia, the USA, China and the UK in the aftermath of Easter Sunday attacks. Earnings from tourism were estimated at $313 million in April 2019, with cumulative earnings amounting to $1,704 million during the first 4 months of 2019. In April 2019, workers' remittances amounted to $554 million, recording a year-on-year growth of 2.3%. On a cumulative basis, workers' remittances amounted to $2,171 million during the first 4 months of 2019. Diesel and Motor Engineering plc, the only authorized general distributor for Mercedes-Benz in Sri Lanka, announced its new brand identity during a media briefing held in Colombo last evening. The authorized Mercedes-Benz distributor in Sri Lanka, DMO, announced its new brand identity during the launch of the 27th edition of the Mercedes Trophy Tournament. The 2019 edition of Mercedes Trophy National Final Sri Lanka Tournament is to be held on the 6th of July at the Royal Colombo Golf Club, and it is open for all Mercedes-Benz owners. Speaking exclusively to Art Television, Chairman and Managing Director of DMO, Ranjit Panditage, highlighted their commitment to adapt to the changing needs of the stakeholders and environment.
We are celebrating our 80th years young, and we have decided to do a logo change and to give a fresh look to this brilliant organization, DMO. And with that, we want to ensure that the core values and the culture of the company will remain. The trust that the Sri Lankans have laid on will remain. We normally say we touch the lives of all Sri Lankans every minute, 365 days. And we want to ensure that with a fresh look, modernized look, with the logo change.
The Department of Meteorology claims that showers or thunder showers will occur in western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Mathura districts, while gusty winds can be expected in the island. Several spells of showers will occur in northwestern province and in Matale and Hambantota districts too. Fairly heavy falls, about 50 mm, can be expected at some places in Sabaragamuwa province and in Kaluthara, Galle and Mathura districts, while fairly strong gusty winds up to 50 km per hour are likely over the island, particularly in western slope of the central hilly areas, southern province and western coastal areas. There may be temporary localized strong winds during the thunder showers, and the general public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by the lightning activity. Showers or thunder showers will occur at several places in the sea area of the coast extending from Puttalam to Hambantota, where Colombo and Galle. Thereby, winds will be southwesterly and speed will be 30 to 40 km per hour in the sea areas around the island. The sea area off the coast extending from Trincomalee to Kankasanthuree via Mullaitivu will be fairly rough at times as the wind speed can increase up to 50 kilometers per hour, and the naval and the fishing communities are requested to be vigilant in this regards. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back after the break. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a mixed note today. The all-share price index gained 16.7 points to close at 5,392.3, and the S&P SL 20 dropped 1.38 points to close at 2,513.96. The turnover was 542,019 million rupees, with over 61.1 million shares were traded. Up next are forex rates. That's all the news for today. Join us tomorrow at the same time. Until then, take care. Good night.